These 5 stretches are easy to do, you can do them in your house, and you can do them every single day, and I guarantee they're gonna help you improve your performance both in and out of the water. So why is stretching important? It can help improve your mobility and flexibility. We know that's important to improve your performance in swimming. It can also help prevent against injury. Being injured, let's just face it, it sucks, and it keeps you out of the water and away from making those gains in the pool and also out of the water as well. And we wanna do everything we can to reduce our chance of injury, and it helps boost recovery. If you want to hit the session hard, whether that's in the pool or out of the water, you have to make sure that your body is recovering. And by doing these stretches that we're going to talk about, it allows your body to do that. And we want to maximize your performance. That's a little bit of a background as to why you should be stretching. Now let's talk about when you should stretch. Now this is probably the most confusing and misunderstood thing that swimmers do, and I guarantee you're probably making some of these mistakes. Let's talk about them. The first one is dynamic versus static stretching. First of all, I want to define what each of those are, and then I'm going to go into explaining these 5 stretches and how they can be applied to you. First of all, dynamic stretching is something that you do before your swim. This is where you're basically swinging your arms around your legs, you're getting the body flexible to achieve in the workout. So you do this before your session. This would be something as simple as dynamic arm swings or dynamic hamstring stretch. Basically, you are making your muscle elastic and you are not holding the stretch, which causes a lot of adverse effects if you do that before your workout. What you do after the workout is called static stretching. Now, static stretching is where you basically hold the muscle. You're gonna hold it like that, you're gonna focus on breathing, and by holding the muscle, you can actually increase that flexibility in the long run. The reason why you do dynamic stretching before a workout, before you do any physical activity, is because your body just isn't warmed up yet. You don't have blood circulating through the muscle. So if you do static stretching before the activity, you actually increase the likelihood of injury and it will decrease your performance. Like I said, this is one of the biggest mistakes that swimmers make. It's confusing dynamic and static stretching, and today we want to fix that for you. Now that we understand we do dynamic stretching before a workout and static stretching after a workout, these stretches that I'm going to talk about are what you do at your house after a session. There's something that you can do in the morning, in the middle of the day, and at night before you go to bed. These are considered static stretches. Now these are really important because in the long run, these are the things that can actually increase your flexibility, and that'll help you in the gym, in dryland, and of course in the pool. So we're gonna focus on static stretching for the scope of this video, but let's talk about some static stretching tips, and actually these will apply to dynamic stretching as well. So I want you to focus on a few different things. Number one is the breath. This might be one of the most important things to focus on, but when you focus on the breath, what that's doing is it's allowing you to circulate that oxygenated blood. If you don't breathe and you just hold your breath while you're doing this stretch, you're gonna basically just fatigue yourself and it's gonna cause you more pain and increase your chance of injury. So it's really important to focus on breathing in your nose, out your mouth. And when we do static stretching, we'll talk about these different stretches. You actually wanna hold them and you wanna breathe at least 5 times, both in and out, so 10 times. Otherwise, you're not really giving your body a chance to circulate that blood. So it's really important to focus on your breath. Also focus on alignment. And this means you are balanced. If you stretch your right leg, you stretch your left leg. If you're laying on the ground and your torso isn't in line or your spine's not in line, you gotta make sure you do those adjustments to the best of your physical abilities. And that way you are aligned and you are stretching your body and you are keeping things balanced. You can actually create a lot of injuries if you are unbalanced, if you have more flexibility on one side of your body compared to another, or your upper body might be more flexible than your lower body, or you might have some cross-sectional imbalances in your flexibility, and that's really important to make sure you're aligned. The third is focusing on your comfort zone and actually pushing just outside your comfort zone. This actually is a lot easier when you focus on your breath. So if you're doing a stretch and you're focusing on increasing the range of motion, as you breathe in and out and you do those big exhales and big inhales, it allows you to actually push yourself a little bit more and reach a little bit further if you're touching your toes or you're focusing on some other stretches we'll talk about. Really important to push yourself just outside your comfort zone, but you have to know your limits and you don't want to actually tear anything or push yourself so outside the scope of your control that you end up causing some damage and you're not helping yourself in that regard. Additionally, you want to focus on creating a habit. It's so important that you build routine around your stretching. And if these static stretches are things that you do in the morning, in the middle of the day, after your workout, or at night, or all four of those, that's great as long as you have a routine, because that's how you're gonna get the biggest gains when you do that. And finally, you have to focus on understanding dynamic stretching versus static. Dynamic is before, static is after. And it's really important that you balance on both sides. If you only do dynamic stretches before, or you only do static stretches after, you've only got half of the picture. That's why it's so important to do both dynamic before and static after. Now let's do the first stretch I want to tell you guys about is the hip flexor stretch. You might be wondering, what the heck is a hip flexor? You imagine your body and your leg, your hip flexor is the thing that connects both of them. And so what happens if you're sitting for a long time, or you're standing, or you're walking, or you're kicking, your hip flexors and your glutes can actually get really, really tight. So there's a few different ways that you can stretch your hip flexor, and these include just laying on your back and just grabbing your leg, and you can just hug your legs. Another way, and probably my preferred way to stretch your hip flexors, is to just put one knee on the ground, and you want to make sure you're kneeling tall, and you actually just want to push your hips forward. You want to push your glutes in, and you want to really put some forward pressure right on your hip flexor, and as you push forward, you're actually going to feel that stretch. If you really want to feel it, go ahead and lift your arm up on the side that you're stretching, and it's going to really open things up from your kneecap, which is in the ground, all the way up through your fingertips, and you're going to really feel it on that hip flexor. If you do this, it's going to actually help your flutter kick, your streamline, and you're going to feel a lot taller in the water because you're not going to feel as compressed, and that's what happens when you have really tight hip flexors. Really tight hip flexors actually cause a lot of challenges for people in daily life. It can hurt your lower back. You can have a lot of different injuries that result from very tight hip flexors. So it's important to do this kind of a stretch multiple times throughout the day, and remember those tips on what to focus on. Downward dog. Let's talk about downward dog. Now, this might sound familiar because it's actually a yoga pose. Now, there's two versions of it. There's downward dog and there's upward dog. The version that we're talking about is downward dog. This really stretches out a lot of different parts of your body. It also focuses on stability in the core. And that way, we talk about core strength a lot in swimming. Your body's in the water. You need to be stable. When you do the downward dog, it's really important that you focus on stability in addition to all these other things. You're going to stretch out your hamstrings. And by actually modifying your position and moving your hips forward and backward just slightly, you can actually increase or decrease the amount of stretch that you're getting through your hamstrings. It also puts a good stretch on your upper body. Again, modify as needed, so you make sure you do the stretch correctly. Our third stretch is the lying twist. It focuses on your lower back. Got to be patient, and I recommend you do this in the morning. When you do this, you have to really focus on your breath. You're basically laying on your back. You feel like a pretzel. Sometimes a chiropractor or a physical therapist might do this stretch if you have lower back problems, but it's great that if you can do this on your own, where you lay on your back and you simply let your legs slant basically side to side. If you can get your knees all the way to the ground, or you can do this on your bed, that's great. But it really focuses on that core stability, and it really stretches out your lower back. The fourth is child's pose. Again, this is another yoga stretch right here. Focuses on that lower back, and you can actually increase your flexibility over time. This is one of those movements that I would not recommend you go into very hard and you really just focus on pushing yourself. Instead, you want to gradually get into it, increase your stretches over time in terms of the amount of resistance that you put on your body when you do this stretch. Sometimes people will actually apply additional resistance with someone else, like a coach or a trainer. Again, you want to start out easy and gradually build into it as you increase your flexibility. And our fifth and most important stretch, this is my favorite. We should have put this first, but if you guys made it to the end, you are a real hardcore fan. You're trying to get better, and this is how you get better. It's the Streamline. It is the most important word and stretch in swimming. The fundamental body position of all the different strokes. Water is 800 times more resistive than air, and that is why being in Streamline and teaching your body how to be flexible, patient, and controlled in Streamline, that is the most important thing. You can do this every morning in the mirror. Put your hands together, one hand over the top, your top hand, your thumb grabs the bottom hand, and when you do that stretch, you're just gonna reach up and try and get as tall as possible. This is gonna work on stretching your shoulders, even your forearm a little bit. It's gonna focus on stretching your lats. You're gonna get that through your spine, and then if you want, get on your toes and try and get as tall as you can, because that is the way that you push off the wall, and that is how you increase your performance in swimming. And if you guys have any questions on any of that, let me know down below in the comments. I'm actually taking the top questions and I'm doing video responses on my other channel, MySwimPro Community. Check it out there. I'm gonna personally answer some of your questions, so make sure you leave them down below. And I hope you guys have an awesome day. Happy swimming, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.